Stetson. What is going on? Christian Gokel alongside PJ Zuko. As we mute some computers in here and get ready for another big show today.
It was the same button I was pressing. I don't know what in the world.
I just had to double check. It worries me. I know you get scared because that's one of those new MacBooks with one of the touch bars.
You hit things
it's not
and
an
they
actual
happen.
button, and it's real scary.
What's weird is I hit it and it was still coming through, and then you hit it and it was like, Christian Gokel activated. I was like, oh, okay. I guess
scary.
I guess he's the only
There's
one that can do that.
There's a whole lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
We do have a lot to dive into today, though. We have again,
let's not.
It's a Thursday, so a little bit of a shortened show. We have the Sean Quinn show coming up at 2:30. But prior to that, we'll talk to our good friend from Dogs Daily on Sports Illustrated, Brooks Austin, going to come up here at 2:15 because the kind of news of the day, which really isn't news,
right?
It's just more of a continuation, I guess. That I hate doing it like this because they just won't come out and say it. More likely than not, Stetson Bennett is going to be the starting quarterback for Georgia on Saturday at 3:30 when they take on Auburn. Now, Andre Adelson with ESPN.com, they put out like her week 6 preview, and going down the game is she's like just quoted Kirby Smart from his press conference that he gave yesterday, saying basically JT Daniels was able to throw the football a little bit, but it hasn't really been involved in the game plan so far this week and hasn't been able to get those first team reps and the live fire stuff and really throw and push the ball down the field. So right now the plan is for Stetson Bennett to be the starting quarterback. And I think it's just one of those wait and see things with JT Daniels. For those of you who aren't aware, he's dealing with the same kind of lat injury that Dak Prescott was. If you watched Hard Knocks, you kind of got to see an inside progression on how that worked. Like he just came out to practice one day and started throwing the ball around. Was like, feels a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
Feels a little weird. And apparently it's an injury pitchers get a lot because they were like consulting with the Astros and the Yankees about how they deal with it. And apparently JT Daniels, like the grade on his injury is much less so than what Dak Prescott was dealing with, but still just an injury where the only way to let it heal is to let it heal.
Yeah.
And throwing the football on it and trying to chunk balls down the field and getting hit by 300-pound guys who run 4.5s, probably not the best way to let it heal. So,
right.
Moral of the story, JT Daniels, it looks like he's going to be, because we kind of say this about Stetson Bennett, but it could be JT Daniels this week. He's going to be that break in case of emergency quarterback,
right,
where he's going to be dressed out on the sideline. I'm curious if and we'll ask Brooks about this, if they bring Carson Beck and Brock Vandagriff because JT's banged up, because you have a limited roster that you can bring with you on the road games and SEC road games. Curious if they bring 4 quarterbacks on the road. So it'll be Stetson, who is dealing with a couple of his own injuries. He had that laceration, which you saw on his, like a little bit below his knee. You saw it on the game last week where he has getting taped up on the sideline. And then he has like a lower back injury that he's been dealing with as well.
Yeah.
So he's banged up. And then you have Carson Beck and then Brock Vandagriff, obviously the freshman, would be the emergency quarterback. But I think more so the reality is if Stetson goes out there, and I know people don't think it because, and if you listen to this show, you go, oh God, here he goes again. I think there is a distinct chance that this game's like 7-3 at halftime.
Yeah.
Auburn can stop the run pretty well. I don't think Penn State or LSU ran for over 100 yards on them.
Right. Which I will say Penn State's running game is not incredible this year, but with that being said, they have faced some pretty solid run defenses in Wisconsin and Auburn, and did struggle against Auburn to find that room. So I would agree with you there. If there's a way Auburn's going to be in this game, obviously it's going to be to slow down the run and see what they can do there. And if they're able to play like they have so far this year, that might be a possibility.
Yeah, LSU ran the ball for 33 yards.
Yeah, that's rough. And granted, I think it's kind of a dual thing, right? Where I do think that Auburn is good against the run. Also, LSU's an odd offensive team this year. They're not really that run first.
They don't have
mentality.
their number one guy, John Emery, because apparently like someone like misscheduled his syllabus, and so now he doesn't have enough class credits to be eligible to play on the football team right now.
Still the most insane thing to happen on the like a week before game day too. But
Well, here's my concern, and I just want to kind of put it out there before we have Brooks on, because I think I want to do two things with Brooks. Is I want to ask him about my concern. I asked him, I literally texted him like 30 minutes ago, and I was like, "Hey, man, I need you to quell some of my worries."
You gonna be up at 2 or
yeah,
like 2
I
p.m.?
literally sent him you up. But I want to ask him about that, because my concern is Auburn's not going to attack Georgia the same way Arkansas did. Arkansas put 3 guys down the line, and then they play that Barry Odom umbrella coverage where they just try to keep everything in front of them and react. I think Auburn's going to be a lot more aggressive.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, hey, if you can beat us with Stetson Bennett, fine. You know what you're not going to do is beat us turning around and running the football on every single snap of a drive, which Georgia did against Arkansas.
Right.
Just literally didn't throw a pass and ran for a touchdown. Right. Yeah. You're not going to do that. They're going to sell out to stop the run. And obviously they can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU's not anything to write home about, but if you hold a team, especially an SEC team, to 33 yards rushing, and it's not like they didn't try to, 25 carries.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. That means you have the guys.
Yeah. If you could hold a team to that few yards running, that's something. And then Penn State, I know Penn State, it doesn't have Saquon back there or anything, but 88 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
In a big game like that, right, where it was 2 good defenses and you're trying to pound the rock. Auburn's got, I think, the dudes to at least annoy this Georgia run game enough to where you're going to have to throw it some. And they're going to say, hey, if Stetson Bennett can beat us, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. And I know last year, everyone's like, look, Stetson got his first win. That's at home. Right. And they fired that coach.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a new program.
I mean, Auburn's 4-1 and they're 18 in the country, and Georgia's Georgia, but Auburn's one loss came because they couldn't figure out how to call a play from the 2-yard line.
That's very true. And threw it at
by 8 points.
Threw it at the defense's best player several times. Yeah. No, but the other
thing I wanted to ask about, because BJ Bennett has this ongoing theory, and I might bring BJ in here and let him be on this when I ask her, like, we get both sides. He has this ongoing theory that Georgia is worse when they try to open up the offense.
Right.
And the point I try to make to him, which I think a lot of people agree. I think a lot of people agree with BJ. But the point I'm trying to make is you can beat 99% of teams in college football by doing that, by just running the football.
Yeah.
Right. Like Georgia can beat 99% of the teams in the country by turning around, handing the rock off to Zamir White and to Kendall Milton and just letting them work, or any other of the 5 running backs they can hand it to. Right. They can beat 99% of the teams in the country. You know who they can't beat if they do that?
Got teams like
Alabama,
Auburn, and Alabama. Yeah.
No, they could probably beat Auburn. Like I'm saying all this, and they could probably still beat them that way. It'll just be closer than you like.
Right. It'll be uncomfortable.
You are not going to beat Alabama doing that. You have to be able to be multiple, and you have to be able to give them for looks. Because if you try to do one thing, we saw it last year when Stetson Bennett went to Alabama, is you were leading at halftime because you were able to be multiple on offense. What was the adjustment they made? It was a really simple football adjustment. They said, we're going to make you be one-dimensional in the second half. We're going to stop the run game, and we're going to make Stetson Bennett beat us. He threw some picks. Georgia ended up getting blown out in that game, and it is what it is. So Bryce Young and that offense is starting to click. That defense is really good. They have some dudes that can get after the passer. And if you think your ultimate goal at the end of the year is to beat Alabama, you're not going to do it by turning around and handing it off. That's why I think there's no quarterback controversy.
Right.
We've seen Stetson Bennett's ceiling. It is what it is. It's amazing. It's amazing to have a backup like him, but we've seen that ceiling. The thing with JT is it a little bit more volatile? Maybe Stetson's going to throw some interceptions.
Yeah.
But he can push the ball into places on the field that Stetson doesn't.
True.
So it is what it is. I want to get Brooks Austin's opinion on it. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, and then maybe bring BJ on.
Yeah,
and let him present his side, or maybe not, because this is my show, so maybe not. But we'll take a quick break here. This is Second Down on ESPN Radio. Got the Sean Quinn Show coming up at 2:30. Going to break down Savannah State's latest win as they improve to 4-1 on the season and remain undefeated in SEAC play. Again, that coming up here in about 13 minutes. But before we do that, got some more Georgia football to talk. And no one I'd rather talk to it about than our next guest. I mean, you usually hear him on the big show, 3 and Out, but he's slumming it with us today on a Thursday afternoon, rocking the Brave shirt, which we love to see. Good friend Brooks Austin on the program. Brooks, I know you were backstage there listening to the conversation, the last segment. And well, I want to start with you this is I am suddenly, and PJ knows this, because like I was concerned about UAB. Like, I'll be completely honest. Not that Georgia's going to lose, but I was trying to tell people, anyone that would listen, that UAB is a good football team. They've done a good job over there. And it's just week after week. I get concerned as the week goes. I know Stetson Bennett's a good quarterback, but LSU ran for 33 yards. Penn State ran for 88 yards against this Auburn defense. And I saw a quarterback that completed 2 passes for 54 yards. And then after that, completed 4 passes for about 5 yards an attempt and was having to scramble a lot because he wasn't finding anything in that Arkansas defense. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting here on a Thursday and I'm a little bit concerned about Saturday if Stetson Bennett has to go.
You conveniently left off the fact that they gave up like 240 yards on the ground at Georgia State at home. But yeah, hey, drive your narrative there, Chief. Go ahead. I mean, look, man, I've been watching it all day today. I've spent about 3 hours watching this game, or watching this game tape from Auburn. If Georgia's defense gives up 200 or more team total yards, I would be absolutely shocked. Like, do they go into Auburn and win this game 28-0 or 31-3 or something along those lines? Maybe, probably. Are Georgia fans probably going to be upset because you are lamenting you can't beat Alabama like this? Maybe a little bit. But I don't think this is a game where Georgia's really pushed late into a third or fourth quarter. I just don't see it. I don't know how Auburn moves the football on Saturday. I just don't. Now, that defensive front is really, really good from Auburn. Don't get me wrong. I'm very, very impressed. Number 29 looks like he was created in a lab. He is a very, very large individual and can really, really go. They might get Owen Papo back, which they didn't have against LSU even a week ago. So, they've got some dudes over there. But I also see a defense from Auburn that plays a lot of man-to-man coverage, like a lot, like way too much, even to go against a guy like Stetson Bennett, who, yeah, he's not JT Daniels, but, I mean, he can still spin it. If you give him time, he can still hit open wide receivers. And that, along with some other stuff that I'm seeing on film, leads me to believe that Georgia handles this football game pretty well.
Okay, Brooks, let me ask you the next question then what we were talking about. BJ Bennett is a big believer in Georgia is at its best. It's its best form of itself, regardless of what year it is, when it is able to run the football and then pass when it needs to, right? It's just if you can turn around and hand it to number 27 and number 1 in 2017, that's going to take you a long way, right? It didn't take you where you needed to be. And his point is you walked off the field with the lead in overtime and you just blew a coverage on defense. My point is you should never have been in overtime to begin with, the way their offense performed in the second half. And then we've seen it, I think, is the reason you make a move to Todd Monken, right? It's the reason you bring in a JT Daniels from USC is Georgia can beat 99% of the teams in the country by turning around and handing it to their running backs and playing defense. They can't beat the one team they want to beat unless you can be multiple on offense, take what they give you when you have to, and hit some shots down the field.
So I was listening to the argument. I get it. And you talked about how they got a little, one-dimensional in the second half against Alabama, and that's why they lost the football game. My question is, do you think this Alabama football team scores 41 points on Georgia this year? Because that's what they did last year. Or do you think they score more like 30 or 31 points if they really have a great game, right? They scored 31 points on the road against Florida. I would take this Georgia defense hands down every day of the week, times 1,000 over that Florida defense.
You're saying with this Georgia defense and Stetson Bennett starting at quarterback, Georgia can beat anybody in the country. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I do believe that. Christian, this defense is better than anything you've ever seen. I'm dead serious with you. And I've been telling my people, it's just I don't see Alabama's offense like putting up a boatload of points. Georgia's offense is good enough, can score enough points, can manage the clock, can handle the football, and protect them with Stetson Bennett. Now, are they odds-on much higher favorites with JT Daniels at quarterback? 100%. And guess what? Come December, he's probably going to be good to go and fine and back in the rhythm and everything you need him to be going to that SEC championship game. I think too much gets made about, oh, Georgia ran the ball 56 times on Saturday. Yeah, they did, because that was the game plan. They wanted to drop 8, so Todd Monken ran the air out of the football and knew he could do it successfully. Every time a team loads the box on them, guess what they do? Mississippi State tried to load the box on them. Cincinnati tried to load the box on them. They threw for 400 yards. UAB tried to play man-to-man coverage and add a 7th defender into the box. Freaking Stetson Bennett was 4 for 5 for 250 yards before you can bat an eye. I mean, it's a very you talk about multiple offenses. That's pretty daggone multiple to me. They take what the defense is allowing them to do, and they do it. It doesn't matter if you're saying, hey, you got to run the football today to win. So they run the football. Hey, you got to throw the football today to win. So they throw the football. That's as multiple as you get. Are they multiple in one singular game? No, but I don't think a lot of offenses are outside of Lane Kiffin's maybe.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question based off what you just said there. Georgia's defense, they've been unbelievable. You know, 1 touchdown through 5 games. The closest we've seen to that is 2011 Alabama. They gave it like 0.7 touchdowns per game through the year, which is otherworldly, right? They've been elite, but I don't think they've really been pushed by a team that can push the ball down the field yet. I mean, we thought that would be Clemson, but we've seen that Clemson offense is a shell of what it used to be. You got DJ going out at like midnight at Clemson, practicing afterwards with just a very convenient cameraman who happened to be there to film him practicing at midnight. But we haven't seen this team tested by a team that can push the ball down the field yet. Do you have any reservations about that back half of the defense?
Got to have time to push the ball down the field, don't you?
That is very fair.
Yeah, so you got to have time to push the ball down the field, which I don't know of a lot of offenses that will be able to do so. Also, Georgia's front 6 is so daggum good at stopping the run by themselves. They drop 5 in coverage every down. So not only do you have to have time, you got to have the routes to develop guys to get open. And, yeah, they haven't been tested yet because they haven't been tested yet. It's not that they're not good football players. They get tested every day in practice. I mean, Darren Kendrick is an NFL corner. That's one side of your defense. You get to play 2 safeties deep at all times. That helps a lot. I mean, that helps a ton. And yeah, like Keely Ringo is getting better. He's still a young football player. He's really, really good, and he's really talented. And talent like that, especially at the corner position, we've seen over the years, right? Derek Stingley as a freshman getting very early playing time. Once it became like nut-cutting time and games were big time, that dude balled because he's so talented. And that's what talented football players do, and I think Keely Ringo's a prime example of that. When it gets time, when it's college football playoff time, you're going to see that dude at his peak because he's an elite athlete. That's what those guys do.
Brooks, 30 seconds here. How much money would I have to pay you to get an Oklahoma drill with Jalen Carter?
I don't know. I mean, we're head-to-head. It wouldn't hurt that bad. Give me like $40 just for the experience. I mean, yeah, he's going to kill me, but, it'll still be fun. Again, Oklahoma drill, the real question is, how much money would you give me to like go line up and like off ball Quay Walker or Nakobe Dean gets to hit me and I'm carrying the ball? Yeah, that's a couple $100. But when we're in helmet to helmet, 3-point stance, that ain't that bad. Board drill, I ain't trying to have none of that smoke though. I'll tell you that right now.
No, thank you. Brooks Austin, DogsDailyOnSI.com. Catch all of his stuff there. Brooks, we appreciate it, brother. Thank you for hopping on short notice.
Talk to you soon, brother.
Again, we got the Sean Quinn show coming up next. PJ, how much money for you to jump in on one of those Oklahoma drills? Maybe you're carrying the rock, Brooks blocking Jalen Carter?
I mean, I liked his answer, but probably a little bit more, maybe 75 and the experience, $7,500.
And like cover the hospital bills?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's the one caveat, right? Definitely cover the hospital.
We'll cover the hospital bills again. Sean Quinn show coming up next. Savannah State got another big win on Saturday. We'll break it all down with the head coach of the Savannah State Tigers next, right here on ESPN Radio.